Hey, welcome to Reel Filmmaking. Today we're talking all about cinematography in the 2005 film adaptation of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. So I'm sure some of you guys have heard of Pride and Prejudice. It's a very popular book. You've probably heard of Jane Austen, and it's probably her most famous work that she ever wrote. I was an English major, so I've read a ton of her stuff. She's a great writer. I highly recommend that you check her out. She just has such a pulse on creating real believable characters, people that you can really resonate with. You read these stories and you're like, wow, I feel like I'm really inside someone's head. And that's what I love about Jane Austen. And so recently I was watching the 2005 Pride and Prejudice adaptation with a friend. I was looking at it more through a cinematographer's lens in light of all the stuff I do here at Reel Filmmaking. And something really struck me. Jane Austen has a knack for witty dialogue, and a lot of the different themes and societal issues and relationship stuff that she tackles are through characters and dialogue. So as a cinematographer, what do you do to help encourage or motivate or make an interesting visual story that someone is watching? Because, well, first of all, you really hope that you have a good screenwriter for adapting something like this, because if you don't, you're in trouble. But as a cinematographer, what can you do? Like what do you do? And so watching this film and watching how the cinematography and the director chose different shots and lighting and different things like that, it was very fascinating. So today I chose 3 scenes that I'm going to break down for you guys, and we're going to look at and how the camera work complements the themes and ideas and motivations already present in Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. So let's do it. We start with a wide shot to help establish where we are. Then we see this nice push-in where the doors open and we see the dance that's happening. This is a great shot. I love the depth that's being used here with all the movement of people. To see a lot of this nice action happening, and because this story revolves around the Bennet sisters, we get a lot of clever insert shots here. It's like there's things happening, we're seeing around the dance hall, but then we're also seeing shots of the Bennet family, because this is first and foremost their story, primarily Lizzie's. Great action shots here. One thing that's really cool that the cinematographers did, there's Mr. and Mrs. Bennet, is they use a lot of in-camera transitions. So people, they're dancing, there's natural movement, but they'll walk in front of the frame just like that, and they'll use it to transition to another cut. So I think there's one coming up here. Somebody will dance, there we go. That's great. And it's a lot of those great in-camera transitions that are just super nice to pull off, and they just up the level of congruence in the film. So we have Bingley, Darcy, and Caroline entering, and we see how they're first silhouetted in shadow. So again, this is something that will help to establish this idea that they are set apart from these other people that they're coming into contact with. They're very wealthy, these people are common. Again, back to the Bennets. And so when we finally see them, they start in the background of the frame and they walk into the foreground. And this is great. And we have the people separating, like stepping aside, parting ways, again conveying this idea that these people, Darcy, Bingley, and Caroline, are very different from these other people here at this ball. We get a quick glance between Darcy and Elizabeth, a little foreshadowing for their future encounters. And now we have the reverse scene where they're at the background of the frame as opposed to the foreground. And we're back to dancing. And the Bennets, this is their story. So Mrs. Bennet talking to Mr. Bennet, we need to meet them. Cut back to the sisters, so there's stuff happening, and now we see Darcy and Bingley shrouded in shadow. Again, another visual cue that shows us that they are different, that they are set apart from these people. So much happening in the storytelling. So the Bennets come to meet Mr. Bingley, Caroline, and Mr. Darcy, and there's a great subtle camera work that's being done here. Notice how the camera is slightly angled down when we look at the Bennets. That is to, again, drive home this fact that they are in a different class than Bingley, Darcy, and Caroline. Very much something that just helps to amplify this message, this idea that runs through Jane Austen's story. Some great dancing, some great visuals, and a nice shot following the rule of thirds to end this scene. So that first scene is a doozy. Lots of stuff happening there in that ballroom dance scene. It's just really cool, a lot of stuff that how they, like using the silhouettes and how they enter and just all the movement and the camera work. It's really awesome. So now that there's all this stuff happening and we know who Darcy is and we know who Elizabeth is, let's take a look at a scene fairly close right after that. So we start the scene with this great walking shot between Darcy and Bingley, and then Lizzie and her friend Charlotte come into frame. This is great on so many levels, but visually it again undergirds this idea that they are separated. They're separated by class, they're separated by standing, different social circles, and Lizzie overhears what Darcy says, that, she's not fair enough to tempt him. So then we get this great shot, this nice slow pan that shows all the characters interacting, and we get to see where they are so we as the audience aren't confused when we start cutting back between conversations. And again, we have another instance of visual storytelling that shows the Bennets on one side of this kind of 180 line, and Darcy, Bingley, and Caroline on the other side. It's very clever how they do this, and it's great. Now we have some interplay between Lizzie and Darcy. We see their eye lines meet, and then we cut to a traditional over-the-shoulder shot when it's just them going back and forth.
Dancing, even if one's partner is barely tolerable.
Lizzie's just so great. And then again, we get some great visual storytelling that the camera follows Lizzie out, but again, there's a separation between her and Darcy. They're different people, not just in class, but just in personality. And what a great shot to end on. Ooh, so some cards have been thrown down on the table. Mr. Darcy, but not pretty enough to tempt me. Whoa, I would not say that if I'm trying to get a first date. So with the table set for the Pride and the Prejudice, let's look at this next scene. Start with a nice pan up here, a nice slow pan to Mrs. Bennet. Just kind of chilling on the couch. Rough day. Cut out to a wide shot to establish things. And then we hear the news. Bingley's returned. See the girls' faces. Mrs. Bennet. What I love here is I love the editing in this scene. That you get to bounce around between the characters, see their different reactions. We hear that Mr. Darcy is with Mr. Bingley. And we see Lizzie's reaction. Nice insert of the two of them. You get a little moment with her. Jane. It's so great. This is one of those instances that I had mentioned earlier. That there's not explosions, there's not high action stakes in this, but the way that this is cut together, you feel the energy. The scene moves, there's something happening, there's something that's driving the plot forward, and this is great.
Mr. Darcy and Mr. Bingley, ma'am.
Such a great ending. Such a great scene. Wow. What a way to end. So yeah, these three scenes are great. This whole movie is great, even if it's not your thing. Even if you're I don't do period pieces or I don't do Jane Austen. First of all, you're wrong. Second of all, you should definitely try this. It's really well made. It's not too long. I feel like the dialogue is so well written that you will be engaged and you will care, and I think you'll genuinely laugh. So thanks for joining me in this cinematography breakdown of the 2005 film adaptation of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. If you like what you see, click that subscribe button, and check out more of our stuff at thatrealperspective.blogspot.com. And until next time, go out there and make movies.